Today we're going to bring you up to speed on what's buzzing around the world of sport. They say the art of the conversation is to talk about the right thing at the right time, and this is the right place. You're watching The Conversation. Welcome to The Conversation. I am Ehi Alonge, and with me is sports blogger and football fan Marshall Norball. Hello, Marshall.
Hey, how are you?
Glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
Let's start with a surprise move to many. Jurgen Klopps has called time on his career at Dortmund. Speaking at a press conference yesterday, he said, "I always said in that moment where I believe I am not the perfect coach anymore for this extraordinary club, I will say so." Okay, Marshall, in footballing terms, this was the resignation heard around the world. I mean, as a fan, as a follower of the game, did you see this coming?
Yes. It's not a complete surprise considering Dortmund's very inconsistent season that they've been having, very much in the bottom half of the Bundesliga after, previously winning the title twice, last season's runners-up. So there was a slight rumour that this was potentially happening. And of course, there will be other teams around Europe who might just be keeping a little earmark on Mr. Klopps' movement over the next few months.
That's a very good point, because last season when Arsenal was struggling, I know a lot of Arsenal fans felt he was the answer. This season they're doing probably, one could say a little better, looking likely to finish second and maybe through to the cup final again. But clearly Wenger's not going anywhere, at least he's not under the same pressure having won a trophy last season.
For sure, maybe a year ago, if it was this time last season, Klopp would have made that announcement. Yes, I think there would have been that natural transition for Jurgen Klopp. Now, I don't really see Arsenal going in that direction. I think it's very clear from how they've moved this season, in particular with bringing back in, Coquelin. Arsenal are a much more stable team, but I will feel certainly that Klopp will be sought after in the summer.
Okay, Man City, according to some sources in media in British television, on Sky especially, have come out and said they will be sticking with Pellegrini. They haven't come out and officially made the statement, but the rumours are they are going to stick with Pellegrini. So if we take away the Premiership, unless maybe Brendan Rodgers, do you think there might be any...
I'll be very surprised if the Liverpool board get rid of Brendan Rodgers.
So realistically, obviously Jose is going nowhere. I can't see LVG going nowhere. So... Yeah. Might it be Russian money? He said that language is important, and English is the only other language that he speaks kind of well enough to do what he wants to do on the coaching field.
I'll be very surprised by Russia. I think there is a potential maybe for someone like Real Madrid there in Spain. Obviously, a gluttony of wonderful talent, footballers, and there has been also talk of Ancelotti's future, certain level of uncertainty. Yes, they're still in the Champions League. Yes, they're still in the hunt to win the Liga. But there's always a very quick turnaround, churn of managers in that very, very senior position of Real Madrid.
And I suppose that the shame is obviously in the German Bundesliga, unless you go to Bayern Munich. He could go to Schalke, but they're too close a rival. So
very much so.
Bayern Munich or bust.
And Bayern Munich are pretty much well set with arguably, one of the best managers in the game. In Pep Guardiola. So if from Klopp's perspective, I think he can sit patiently and wait and maybe allow the opportunity to kind of arise for himself.
Okay, let's look at another issue that's been going on, because Raheem Sterling's transfer saga has had him in the news, but now he's trending for something rather different. Let's see some tweets and hear from Brendan Rodgers in his post-match press conference.
I owe him that respect to see what he says on it, but obviously, as you can imagine, I only seen it today. So, but we want players here that are super professional, that are focused on their football. and I know he is. He's very much focused on his football and improving as a player. Like I said before, young players, they'll make mistakes, and as long as they learn from them, that's what's important.
Okay, Marshall, let's be honest here. Raheem has 2 years left on his contract, and he's asked to have only till the summer in order to sit down with his club and decide what he wants to do next. There are some rumours and expectations that he's going to want more money than the club has offered, which is to be expected. There's a big new TV deal. He's part of the reason why they're getting a big new TV deal. So is this campaign to now focus on some of his off-pitch behaviour, which is not illegal, but obviously not ideal? Do you think this is part of an orchestrated move to put pressure on him to stay, or do you think it's just the pressure that kids operate on in the top of the game nowadays?
I think the first step is probably with Brendan Rodgers, from the basis that he quite openly at the early part of the season suggested that Raheem Sterling is the best young talent in Europe. So whether he didn't intentionally mean to say that, it's already sparked from an agent perspective. Well, if we have the best talent in Europe, young talent in Europe, that's got to be justification to pay him top money. And it's not just top money of, you say, a high-quality player in the Barclays Premier League, maybe a John Terry, who still does a great job, or maybe any one of the players at Manchester United. But even to a high level that could rival any of the top European teams.
Every manager's going to say that when you have a young talent. You're not going to. You might say he's got a lot to work on. It doesn't mean that you want to pay him less than you do. And you might say he's the best player I've ever worked with and he's got a great future ahead of him. It doesn't mean, again, that you're going to pay him the same money you'd pay a Ronaldo or a Messi. I mean, no. A manager's got to be allowed to praise his player without worrying that the agent's going to knock on the door the next day, surely.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear. It's not saying that, Brendan Rodgers, it wasn't intentional. But what it is, a young man with the talent that Raheem Sterling has. And yes, fair enough, he hasn't met his full potential as yet. But when you've got 2 years left on your contract, you're clearly the main focal point of that football team. Luis Suarez is no longer there, which again is another bargaining chip. He's no Luis Suarez. But what he does give to Liverpool when he is playing very well, he gives them an X factor. He gives them a different dimension. He makes them. He really does make them come alive. When Raheem Sterling is playing well, things are flowing very well for Liverpool Football Club.
Okay,
so I can very
much
much understand why he's out there trying to get the best deal. I don't think he's gone the right way about it, but I do think he's making the sensible noises.
Okay, well, look, after the break, we're going to move from a prospect to a legend. See you after the break. Welcome back to the conversation. Before the break, I said prospect to a legend, and with that legend, I've got to ask one question. Is Didier Drogba past it or not? Read these tweets to see what some fans think. What we wanted to show there with those tweets, and what people who have been following this on Twitter would have picked out, is that despite the fact that he's had probably even a better season statistically than Lukaku, who he replaced at Everton, obviously, but many feel that Drogba that we're watching now, he comes on for the last 20 minutes of games, is rather ineffective in terms of what is expected. His movement's not great. Is he finished as a top-level striker?
From the level that he was maybe from his first spell at Chelsea, he's not going to be that player anymore. And Didier Drogba was never that kind of impact player. He was very much seen as the main man at Chelsea Football Club in Mourinho's first spell and beyond that point. So I can understand the difficulty he would probably have of coming on for a short 20 minutes and expecting something to really happen. Chelsea fans, he's just not going to be that anymore. But does he still have a benefit to the football club? Yes, I do feel so.
There's so much more talent out there. You think of players that Chelsea can afford, whether it's a Cavani, whether if you look around English football, there'll be one or two strikers that they could afford in terms of up-and-coming strikers, maybe even giving Remy more match time. Yes, we understand the squad benefits, but if that's what he's there for, to inspire, to motivate, then he can do that in management and coaching. I mean, on the pitch, surely Chelsea need to be focusing on beating teams like PSG, and to do that, you need currently good players or currently great players, possibly?
That's the next level for them. I think it's still. I don't feel like Remy is the player to help Chelsea win another Champions League. They do have a top quality striker in Costa, but he struggles with fitness. I think Didier was a good short-term solution. Someone who's been there, who has done it before, and on the odd occasion can still create sparks of magic.
Okay, so
but he's in order for Chelsea to progress, they need to really be looking at another top quality striker.
If Chelsea do take that option, take that option of buying a younger striker, maybe somebody within a younger age profile, would you advise Drogba to seek another move, or do you think it's time for him to maybe look? I mean, his charity's doing great work. He's just opened the first of 5 hospitals in Ivory Coast. And he's very busy in that sector, in that sort of third sector environment in the Ivory Coast. Maybe it's time for him to focus on that, or do you see one more move to maybe a smaller team or a smaller league as being worth it?
I can see one more move, possibly back onto the continent, for playing at maybe a slightly lower level or opportunity.
MLS maybe?
Potentially MLS. I don't see him doing that long term, but he can certainly cash in pretty quickly from MLS. It has improved a lot, and there's obviously new stars going over there. Gerrard, Lampard as well. Robbie Keane's that there. Well, you would. I'll be very surprised. Although he's actually been one of their better players this season, Frank Lampard, and he's done very well for Man City. I think he needs to make that move. Purely more from an ethical standpoint. There's a lot of uproar that would be caused from him still being at Man City past this season.
Okay, right. I want to move to another topic that's trending now. And JJ Okocha, the man himself, so nice they named him twice, well, he wants an end to the Nigerian coaching saga. The word is that Stephen Keshi, or someone else perhaps, might get his contract by Friday. My favourite one there was one about mosquitoes being as elusive as a Keshi contract. Now, what I'd like to start with is, before we look at, JJ's thinking, and I saw the press buzz that there was about that. JJ's thinking, for those that didn't catch it, was that with the All Africa Games positions already, and the qualifiers already done, the AFCON group qualifiers have already been named. His point, very simply, was every other country right now has somebody in charge that is making plans, looking at players, and what have you. Stephen Keshi, whether it's him, and even if it's going to be somebody else, there's no one in charge of that. For a country which didn't qualify for the last AFCON, having won the one before, surely somebody at the NFF must be aware of the seriousness of that situation.
This is absolutely essential. JJ Okocha, when he speaks out on this level, a nation will listen, and he's coming from a real fan's perspective. This contract, as you mentioned, whether it's Stephen Keshi or if it's somebody else, needs to be in place as quickly as possible. You don't run a football club without having a manager in place. It's essential for Nigeria to progress, to prepare for 2017, and even beyond that, for the next World Cup, after doing really well in Brazil, reaching the second round and narrowly getting beaten by Argentina. They need to grow, but you can't grow without management. So if Stephen Keshi is the man, at least if it is for a short period of time.
But isn't that how they got into this mess before? Because it's meant to be for a short period of time over the last World Cup, and then qualified success in some ways and not in others. And so again, the problem also seems to be with Keshi, something that some people have alluded to in some of the Nigerian press, is that he was very much tied into the previous, or the administration currently going out politically, with Goodluck Jonathan having stepped in a couple of times. Do you think that we don't know, we can never tell. There's a lot of politics already within football. But would that factor into some of the issues going on?
That may be a factor, but I think it's very important to focus quite closely from a football perspective here. And I think that's exactly what JJ Okocha is doing. Let's not make this a political argument. Let's make it about what's best for the football team. Again,
because we need. From a football fan's argument, is Keshi the right person? We're talking about whether he signs a contract or not. But actually, let's be honest. the last qualifiers were heavily disrupted by the politics of his position. But is he the right man for the job?
At this present moment, yes. When you have previously won a Cup of Nations, when you have previously got to a last 16 of a World Cup, further than England, further than Spain, who are both previous winners, your resume speaks. It really does speak. So I think it's important that we need to be careful what we wish for, from a Nigerian football fan perspective. He's a proven talent. He's a proven manager. Let's get back going. Any
manager that comes in at the moment, from a Nigerian perspective, I mean, they won the AFCON Youth Championship, so there's a lot of talent waiting to be led.
There is talent there. There is talent there. And as I said before, when JJ Okocha speaks, a man of huge prestige in the country, people will listen.
Speaking of which, with JJ Okocha, would it be fair to say, as with most Nigerian fans, he's a favourite ever player? Would he qualify as your favourite ever Nigerian player?
He's up there for me. Him and Daniel Amakachi.
Okay. All right. When we come back after the break, we'll take a dip into the UEFA Champions League. Welcome back to the conversation. Let's take a look at the UEFA Champions League. Now, despite Porto's great result yesterday, my favourite was that bloody match between Atletico and Real Madrid. Now, Marshall, the reason why I love that game is because, as you know, I play rugby. So for me to see players on a pitch going at it, and after the game, there was a little bit of potential controversy, whether Mandzukic was bitten by a Real Madrid player, and Mandzukic himself came out and said, no, great physical game, nothing illegal happened. Now, that for me was a good football game. But for you, I know, and probably for most fans at home, that was not the game, because yesterday's match between Bayern and Porto was an unforeseen great result for Porto.
Absolutely fantastic. Porto, energy levels. I mean, what a lot of teams have struggled with Bayern before is giving them too much respect and often play off a lot of their star players. I mean, fair enough, there wasn't Ribéry yesterday. Robin didn't play. However, the pressing game from Porto to be 2-0 up within 10 minutes, Ricardo Quaresma was absolutely fantastic yesterday. I
mean, you talk about the missing offensive players for Bayern, but actually yesterday there was two quite key defensive mistakes, probably three actually, because you had Dante with the miscontrol, you had Alonso contributing to the penalty with his mistake, and then you also had the missed header by Boateng, which led to Martinez's third goal. Yeah. So it was, yes, I understand maybe pressure builds mistakes, but I mean, is a 2-goal? They're going back to the Allianz Arena now. Do you think a 2-goal lead is enough for Porto?
It puts them in an excellent position. I think it will very much be based on that first 15, 20 minutes of that game. Bayern know what they need to do, and Porto need to be very resilient, very patient, keep it tight for the first 15, 20 minutes. Allow the game to settle in, because if Bayern do score very early, I can only see one result, and that will be Bayern eventually, out-muscling them and probably going to score several more goals. But this is a great opportunity for Porto to reach the last four.
Okay, and yesterday another amazing performance. I mean, when you look at a striking trio of Suarez, Messi and Neymar, only one of them has to have a good game. And yesterday it seemed that Neymar and Messi probably had A- games, but Suarez was an A-star performance.
Absolutely incredible from Luis Suarez. Energy is what you see with Luis Suarez. Constant, on-the-go movement. And he's a very intelligent footballer. His first goal, Barcelona's second, one nutmeg past David Luiz, held off Maxwell, and then still has the strength and the presence of mind to still finish really well in the bottom corner. And then the second one, again, another nutmeg, poor David Luiz. Two in one night.
£50 million worth of nutmeg there.
Yeah, Gary Neville made a huge point about that on Sky Sports and in the UK. And, the finishes of, that's what you pay, 60, 70 million pounds worth, because he does that.
That tie is finished?
Yes.
That tie is finished?
Yes.
Interestingly, Madrid are yet to beat Atletico this season. This is almost that was the 7th game since the Champions League final. Now it's 0-0. Atletico showed. I mean, even though the keeper was the man of the match, which is usually a sign that you're under a lot of pressure, Atletico showed that they've shown that they have no need to fear going to the Bernabeu. However, this is the Champions League. This is Madrid's league. This is not La Liga, perhaps. At the Bernabeu, can you see a shock result? I suppose. I mean, would it be a shock result for Atletico to go through first, given that Madrid are not that confident in the moment? But can you see them actually losing at home to their rivals?
I can see them being beaten over the 2 ties, possibly through away goals. I don't think Madrid will actually win the match, Atletico, I should say. But the position of not conceding an away goal has put them in a really strong spot. Yes, they have nothing to fear. They know Real Madrid like the back of their hand. You know, they've almost beat them in last year's final. They seem to be able to nullify Cristiano Ronaldo very well in all of those games over the last, 6-7 meetings.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that. And quickly, I mean, the last one, just very quickly. I mean, it's only 1-0, but who's going to go through, Juve or Monaco?
Juventus.
Okay. Now, we're talking about one team sport. I'd like to move on to another team sport, which isn't quite a team sport, but should be a team. I mean, that seems to be the problem that Nico Rosberg is having. So Mercedes have held emergency talks after Nico Rosberg accused his teammate Lewis Hamilton of compromising his race by going too slowly in the Chinese Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton has accused Nico Rosberg of not trying to win. Right, Marshall, as you can see there, I mean, for those, Formula One, firstly, is one of these odd sports in that it's a very popular sport, and each team has 2 drivers, yet the drivers are competing against themselves and also for the benefits of the team. And I guess this is heightened the higher you go up the grid, as it were.
Absolutely.
But for Rosberg to come out so publicly to complain about his teammate not helping him finish second, from a teammate's perspective is one thing, maybe should not have been done in public, but from a competitor's perspective, that's not what you expect of somebody who's hungry to win the title this year, having come close last year.
Completely agree. I think this is another sign who really is number one in that team. And the determination and the desire and the hunger that Lewis Hamilton has to be, I'm number one, I'm alpha dog. This is about me winning another title. I don't care about what Rosberg has to do. If he's not trying hard enough or he needs to try harder, that's up to him. But my job is solely to win as many races as possible for my team and win myself another title.
Even in terms of giving other teams a competitive advantage, I mean, it's very hard because obviously Mercedes is clearly the best car on the grid and probably driving within themselves just to keep it competitive. But in terms of giving other teams just a psychological edge, now this gives the Ferraris where Vettel can really work on Rosberg from a psychological perspective to create problems within the team at Mercedes. I mean, it's really amateurish of Rosberg, I would say.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions that Rosberg probably needs to look at himself. I mean, last season, he had obviously the incident at Spa in Belgium with Hamilton. That seemed to be the tipping point or the turning point that Lewis used that motivation to go in and win, to win, many more races to win the title. I can see Ferrari using this angle, as you said, Ehi, to really try and push on first Rosberg to see if they can create that opening and take advantage. I mean, Vettel's a fantastic driver. He's won 4 world titles. He knows exactly what it takes.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. And we'll keep a very close eye on that for you. But make sure you at home follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And don't forget to post us your own opinions and queries. Let's start Africa's sporting conversation. Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you, Ehi.